Hello everybody, it's on and it's time for another episode of Booking SWF. We are about to start our next episode of Supreme TV, so let's take a look at our card, and I'm going to have my first match likely be a Wild Brawl. We have Primus Allen on the left, Remo on the right, and just with their skills, there's a couple of things that we could do. Psychology wise, Steal the Show is an option, and their consistency is pretty good and their stamina is pretty good, so I do think that that's a possibility for sure. I also see that their brawling is relatively high, and since this is low on the card, a Wild Brawl might be appropriate for these two. Yeah, you know what? I think I might go with a Wild Brawl. It should be a relatively fast match. For a Wild Brawl, you don't want to have more than 15 minutes. So with the stamina and psychology that these guys have, Wild Brawl is a good idea. Now for a Wild Brawl, you do want to have a hot crowd. So hopefully this first segment gets the crowd heat to hot, and then we go right into this Wild Brawl. I also think the main event, which I plan on having be a car crash aim, is going to get a pretty high rating because we have very popular workers who are involved. And then also the crowd heat should be hot enough for a car crash to go over well. A Wild Brawl is considered a crazy match, so is a car crash, but these are pretty far apart. I'm not going to get penalized for having back-to-back crazy matches. Other than that, even though I have two heels in this Spencer Spade versus Steven Parker match, I do think it's going to be a good match rating. Their stats are good. Their in-ring skills should be able to elevate them to a high level. Now, I do think I'm going to keep this as a regular match aim, but this match should be a winner right here. I have a couple backups, but really I am relying on the opening match, main event, and then this second to last match here. As I mentioned with my angles, most likely this will be the best one just because of Jack Bruce's popularity. But other than that, I think there's a possibility that Gary the Entertainer and Justin Sensitive can also have a really good angle here. Other than that, we have some backstage promos with Rocky Golden, Des Davids, and Valiant. Also Hollywood Brett Starr and Rogue, who are good entertainment workers and also quite popular. So if I get one of these to hit in the mid 80s to upper 80s, that takes care of that right there. And then I really just need 3 good matches. Oh, before I do that, I do want to hopefully get this Demelza Wade storyline boosted into the 65 plus range. So I think if I add my storyline idea that I have, which is a safe bet, we can potentially boost that rating. That way, in preparation for the match that happens at the event, we're going to have a hot story. If I don't have a hot story, then it's going to hurt the rating at the event. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully we do get a boost here, even if the angle isn't super juicy ratings wise. All right, let's go ahead and start the show and see what these 5 pre-show matches show us. Pre-show match 1. All right, we did pretty good with the rating. No special in-ring chemistry, so not too worried about that. Let's go ahead and let's just move on. All right, decent rating here. Got a little work in for some guys. Might as well go to the next segment. And again, decent rating. I did want to make sure this tag team gets a little experience because I made them official. Call them the partners because their names sound like a law firm. We'll see that get sorted out in the actual angle later on in the show, but Joey Morgan carried the match. I kind of expect that as these guys team up, but really the goal is that because Arnold and Morgan have good in-ring chemistry as a tag team, I think they can get a push that will give Diva Arnold more popularity, more skill hopefully, and kind of build his status off the back of Joey Morgan's experience, right? So that's the idea with that. I think I have one more pre-show. Let's check it out. And this was meant to be a squash match just to see how Charger Siaki did in that role. They didn't go over great. Road agent note made it penalized. So what was that? Charger Siaki to dominate. Is he just not good at dominating? Siaki plays dominant well. I believe his gimmick is dominant. All right. He has a boost to menace, but he doesn't really have a boost to squashing guys, so I guess he really can't do that. That's fine. That's what I wanted to know. That's why you do it in a pre-show match. All right, we got one more pre-show match. No special chemistry between these guys in a triple threat triangle match. So let's go back to the booking screen. All right, so we're gonna kick things off with this very important angle, which I expect to get the show off to a hot start with a hot crowd and hopefully be the best angle rating of the night. So let's continue on to the main show and see how it opens. Ah, yeah, 85. We kind of nailed it with this one. I like how this turned out. Everything just went really well. We gained heat on our story. Now there's a few more angles, so we might lose a little bit of heat, but we're gonna have a hot storyline for this big match coming up at the event, so I like that. We're hot and rising, so I think we can go ahead and have that match be a wild brawl between Primus Allen and Remo. So let's just go forward and see how it goes. Okay, 81. That is pretty solid for our first match of the night. We still have a hot crowd, so I'm liking that. The Wild Brawl didn't get any special penalties, so that seemed to have worked, especially since we got this note that Primus Allen and Remo do not have good in-ring chemistry, and it was awkward. Oh my gosh. So getting a rating of 81, and yes, these are two good in-ring workers, but let's be clear. This is a good rating with two workers who don't work well together. So I think having that Wild Brawl definitely benefited these two. They both have good brawling skill, both have decent psychology, and we had a hot crowd. So the combination of those things made this match work. Let's just move on and keep it rolling. All right, and this next angle also quite good. Just a stare down. Basically, both these guys work in the crowd. Yes, we lost heat because the last two segments were in the 80s, but hey, that's not too bad. We have a good start to the show with these first three segments. Just gonna quickly go back to the booking screen. We have another angle and then a match. Just want to note that I did put some post-show stuff in here. It's really just with the idea that even if it's not seen on TV, you know, it's something that can be talked about at the event. And then finally, Jack Bruce is going to return for a little in-ring promo, mostly because I want to see if it kind of boosts the popularity in this particular region of the United States where we're holding the show, just because his popularity is so good. That might be a strategy that I might have, especially when I go to Canada and then Mexico. I do have a plan of holding shows in those countries as well. So let's go ahead and continue the show. And this is another solid segment rating, and it gives us a white hot crowd. That's not a bad thing at all. We want hot crowds to get better ratings. And it looks like all these guys improvise well, so we're getting notes for that. We got a solid 77 rating, and we advanced all the storylines without losing heat. So yeah, all good. Let's go ahead and continue the show. And a 75. So not really where I want to be, but if it's a throwaway match, that's great. We definitely gained heat on our tag storyline, which is definitely expected, and that's a big help because this was a cold storyline, and I didn't add the storyline creative idea for this tag team title storyline because I had a feeling that this match was going to do well. We're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and move the show along. And just a 54, so this is pretty low. And we did lose heat on the storyline. I don't really know where this is going. I was thinking that at some point maybe they would have matches because they're both good comedy match workers, but honestly, I don't see why I would have a comedy match. There's very little purpose unless you're basically booking back-to-back shows, and maybe at some point I will do that. You know, I might kick the storyline around just for the heck of it. I don't know if it's gonna get any hotter though. We now have the lowest rated storyline with these two guys. 71, that's a lot better than I thought it might be, and probably a lot of it has to do with the fact that the heat is building in the storyline that they're in. So we got a decent rating for the two workers who are in this match. Neither one of them had an impressive rating. Maybe if I look in the dirt sheet, I'll see exactly what it was that helped. The crowd was very hot, so yep, obviously that helps. And I don't know, maybe that's really it, a combo of having a decent rated storyline and having a hot crowd just put this match over a little bit more than it would have otherwise. So Canadian title tournament is advanced and we're looking pretty good with that. So let's move on to that angle. And yeah, just a 68. They did not quite do as well as I thought they would. There is a lot of parts to this. We have the maximum amount of parts, so maybe that hurt. But the storyline did gain heat, so not complaining about that. Just thought that we might have a better rating here, but the crowd is still very hot and I kind of expect to just level out and stay at very hot for the rest of the show. Next up, we have a match that should be a good match. We're running out of matches, so I do hope that this one gets into the 80s. Let's find out what that looks like. Okay, so another match that's an 81. We have two 81 rated matches. So right now our match rating is an 81, and with our angle ratings, we had an 85 to open things up, and we had pretty solid ones backing it up as well. So, you know, I would say we are solidly at an 81 or slightly above. Yeah, we're doing pretty good this show so far, and I'm pretty confident about things going forward. I know we have a few more segments, so anything can happen. Now, we do have two storylines that gained heat with this match, so that's really good, especially since, you know, with my titles here, I can see that a 68 and a 74, that might push these above 70 and then into the mid 70s, high 70s. So we're looking like we have some hot storylines for matches that are going to be happening at the event. I do want to return to the booking screen just so I know what's coming up next. Okay, yep, we have this promo that sets up a few things. We put the storyline idea in here for this Demelza Wade stable storyline. This is also going to be the debut of a new Supreme star, Sterling Whitlock. And then we have another angle that sets up a match for the pay-per-view and also establishes Morgan and Arnold as a tag team. And then it's our main event. So we got 3 segments to go. We're just going to go boom, boom, boom. These last 3 segments are going to tell the tale of what this show is all about. So let's see what this next angle brings us. Pretty good overall. I mean, the segment rating was technically a little bit better than the sum of its parts, but I think that has to do with the, not the storyline idea, but really the crowd heat, I think. I don't think that this breaks my angle rating. So we're doing pretty well there. The storyline idea was a success. It looks like everyone worked well and looked good. And Sterling Whitlock debuted with his hired gun gimmick. The rating is great. The crowd is very hot. I think that will sustain over the next angle. And yeah, we gained heat on our storyline, so I'm happy about that. I know that I do have a gimmick change. Well, do I? I mean, I think it's really just the alert that Sterling Whitlock debuted his gimmick. Let's recap. Yeah, Sterling Whitlock, hired gun gimmick. So it's a badass gimmick, no comedy. Small penalty to star quality, but that is fine. All right, so yeah, move on to the next angle. Let's check it out. All right, and this final angle, 61, I'm okay with it. This wasn't a good segment because if the commentary is lifting the segment, that means that overall we didn't do great. And these aren't great mic workers. I mean, I did see that Mainstream Hernandez did well. He is probably the best entertainment worker who is in this angle, but we did lose some heat on this storyline, but I'm hoping that it's a hot story for the event. I think we did what we needed to do, and now it's really just up to the main event. Let's just go ahead and see what happens. Ouch. This wasn't great. You know, we had decent ratings from everybody. Nobody was like particularly bad. All the storylines advanced. Wasn't low enough to like drop heat on any of the storylines, and honestly, like, the crowd is buzzing, which is part of what the car crash match aim should do. I did kind of expect that this would be better rated. In the dirt sheet, the only thing that I see was really like unexpectedly penalized was that one of the storylines had comparatively low heat. Yeah, that's too bad. I think the final show rating is going to be above a 78, but it's not really where I wanted it. So my calculations of the ratings for these segments gives me an 80.71 rating for the show. So I'm assuming it's going to be either 80 or rounded up to an 81. 81 would be pretty fantastic. That's two 81s in a row. Overall, I think this show is pretty solid. So now I do want to run these post-show angles just because, like I said, I think there's an advantage to possibly getting a boost to the popularity in this region. All right, so yeah, this would have been a nice angle to have in the actual show, but it actually didn't trigger any storyline, right? We're not advancing storylines here with all these guys in here? Okay. And then finally, last segment, just an 83 from Jack Bruce, but all right, no worries. So let's see what our final rating is as we finish this show. And it is an 81. They rounded us up. I am pleased with that. But yeah, overall, decent show. Like I said, I think we did really what we needed to do here. We shall finish and take a dive into this financial report. So show cost. I don't think estimated cost really means anything, to be honest. If I hire something that's 40,000, whether it's estimated or not, that's how much I'm paying. So I really do think in the end, just trying to get as many tickets sold as possible is the best strategy for booking venues. And we did make money on this show, so that is good. Let's go ahead and move on to the popularity recap. And no real gains in the United States, but we are making some nice gains all over the other regions of the world where we have our own broadcaster broadcasting. So that's good. Okay, close that and post-show complete. All right, let's move on. All right, so day after the show, and we had a pretty good one, 81 rating, almost 5 million viewers on our personal broadcaster. And what I love to see is TCW 10 points lower. They underperformed there, and their total viewership was only just over 2.5 million viewers. So yeah, we got almost twice as many viewers as them, and we had a really good show. So maybe the momentum is shifting. I don't know. I'm hoping so. But now we have the mail to look at, and I want to do a few more things before we really prepare for our actual event that's coming up. So drug test fees, delete. So Jack Bruce's contract is ending. He has one more appearance, and let's take a look at Jack Bruce. I definitely am going to offer him a contract the day that we have the show. I don't want him to accept before that because I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that a new contract overwrites the old one. And that would mean he is no longer going to be available for in-ring work. And I don't want that to happen before the show. So let's go ahead and talk to him though, just to see, will he lose at an event to Remo? And if he doesn't want to, we might have a problem. He would be unhappy. So look, bro, he's going to be unhappy with that decision. Hopefully he still comes back and signs with us. I would not like to lose him to USPW. All right, Forrest Ratzloff is a star, and I am planning on giving Ratzloff a bit of a push here. So thanks, Joe Sexy. I'll take that into consideration. So we did some pretty good viewing figures last night. That's good. Next, I do want to go into pre-booking and make sure I pre-book the rest of my event, Awesome Impact. Let's get those matches in, and we're going to talk about the match lineup. Okay, I have most of my matches pre-booked here. What I added was 3-team tag match, 1 fall, and Remo Jack Bruce, and then a gauntlet match, or a 4v1 versus Brandon James and this new stable, which I'm going to officially create soon. But there's one more match that I need to add. But before I add the match, there's one other thing that I need to do, and that is to unretire the Canadian Championship. And I've been calling it the CGC Canadian title, but I think I'm going to rename it the SWF Canadian Gold title. That's basically because Canadian Gold in Combat owned it, so I like the name. And I just have to unretire it here so I can add it to my pre-booked match. Very nice. There we go. It is active, currently vacant, but we're going to change that. Now, here's the problem. I totally screwed up because I built this whole tournament around a match where these gentlemen are the finalists, but they have awful chemistry when fighting. I really have no choice but to continue. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I really wish that I remembered that. I actually thought the bad chemistry was between Stephen Parker and Primus Allen. Now, Primus Allen did get hurt, so that's also part of why I didn't have him in this Canadian title tournament. But spoiler alert, Stephen Parker is going to win it. I was actually planning on having them continue the program on from this point, but now I'm going to definitely change those plans. So let's go ahead and we're going to pre-book it. Oh, no, wait, I got to put Canadian title, Canadian gold. Next, let's talk storylines. All right, so my World Heavyweight title storyline is still the hottest heat, as it should be. So I'm definitely going to main event here. The Canadian title tournament and storyline has elevated itself to being equal with the world title, but I know that because the workers are not going to have good chemistry in that match already, that it'll probably open the show. That's my plan for now. Maybe if it seems like there's a good fit for it to be something like a technical masterclass, maybe I'll put it in the low undercards, but it's probably just going to be my lowest rated match, and then I'll just move on with booking this title. Right now we have just our storylines just kind of falling into play. The two storylines that are not going to be featured on the card are still a little bit cold, and that's fine, but everything else has gotten up to that hot status. So I'm probably just going to book the matches in order of heat, and we're in good shape for our actual event, I think. Next, I built my stable that Demelza Wade is going to lead, and here she is, Big League Club. And they're brand new, so they don't have a whole lot of momentum at the moment, but that may change soon. So here we are, Big League Club. That is the new stable in SWF. All right, I think we're ready to move on to the next day. We are 3 days away from Awesome Impact, our big event, and let's move on. All right, we are here the day of our event. Last night was the March to Victory tournament that RIPW holds, and it looks like Froshore won, and that's pretty good. I've had my eye on him. Froshore definitely is one of the guys who should get promoted pretty soon. He is 30, you know, he's not getting any younger, so definitely someone to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the male. Oh, we have our women's champion in RIPW, Koyuko Higa. She is now located in New England. Cool. And Zarnel Zephaniah, development contract ending. Okay, so there's a few contracting things that I need to do, and maybe I'll start with Zarnel. Now, he's 25. All right, cool. Let's see what his stats look like. He's not ready to move up by any means, in my opinion. He's making $2,600 a month. So 39 would put him up with some of the older guys who I'm hoping to actually move up into a shooting star division soon. I mean, he does need a raise, it seems, but how much? I'd be comfortable with 35, but let's go with 3,000 a month, and we'll see what he has to say. 6,000 a month. 6,000 a month? 6,000 a month? Nobody makes that. What if we just go for 1 year? He wants 38. I think I let him walk. Yeah. Okay. Now, Jack Bruce has one appearance left on his contract, right? What I want to do is not use him as a wrestler anymore. I want to keep him as a personality, use him as an authority figure, whatever else. But that's why I haven't actually negotiated with him yet. So right now his contract is crazy expensive. And since he's not going to be doing in-ring work, I want to cut down on what I'm paying him. So let's see how this goes. All right, so I'm just going to say never in ring, events and TV shows. Sure, we'll give you the bonus for events. 6 months, maybe you'll change your tune in 6 months. Yeah, let's make it official. All right, so you are going to lose your match tonight. Okay, so we've made our offer to Jack Bruce. We have our event ready to go, all set, pre-booked, and now we just have to put it together. So let's go to the evening portion and get through all the backstage stuff. All right, let's not give anyone the night off. Time to select our venue. All right, so Tri-State is where I want to hold this event. All right, so we're expected to see about 27,000 fans. So let's get in that range. 25, I guess, to 30. We're not expecting more than that. All right, so here's where there's a calculation to be made. Between Buffalo, Rochester, those two have a capacity of 25,000. So we will earn a sellout in that case, paying $60,000 estimated for the cost. Now in Manhattan National Center, we're gonna sell all our potential tickets, but the higher cost is $80,000. All right, so I did the math, and yeah, if I leave the tickets on the table that I'm not selling, roughly 2,400 tickets, somewhere in that range, then I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. So I definitely want to go to Manhattan National Center, make that money. So let's select this venue. And now we'll finalize our broadcasters. Yes. All right, booking team meeting. We got a pretty good amount of creative energy. Now my stored creative ideas, I got a lot of creative finishes. Oh, this is an angle idea. So I have one angle idea for Adam Smasher. Okay, I think I want at least one creative finish, and then I'll see where we go from there. Let's spend our creative energy. This is a bit of a gamble, huh? All right, we're going to discard that. Let's try for another creative finish. This one is likely to succeed, but it's for Primus Allen. Don't know how I feel about that. All right, so now I'm at 73 points. So we try to get another creative finish. A near certainty. It applies to anyone. Okay, I will definitely be cool with that, and I think I'm going to use it for this show. All right, so now we're down to 23 points. Nothing left to spend. In booking team meeting. Locker room incidents. That's nice. No locker room incidents. So let's address the locker room. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and meddle in my usual relationship that needs meddling. Positive meddle. All right, so for simplicity, I have my entire show booked. And what we have is a full 188 minutes of showtime being used, and we have 90% of that time dedicated to matches. We're within the margins, so there's no penalty with our match to angle ratio, but that means we have very few angles. So I'll talk about what I'm doing there first. Now, I think my top angles are going to be video packages, essentially. This Rocky Golden, Scythe, Adam Smasher pre-taped video, and the Jack Bruce Remo pre-taped video. I think this video will actually be the highest rated angle of the entire show. Now, subject of video angle roll is rated on the worker's popularity and is adjusted by momentum. If we look at popularity, Jack Bruce has 94s in the US. He's the most popular worker in the entire world. And Remo right now is working with like 89, 88, 87. He is in the upper 80s, just about to hit 90s in most places. So their popularity combined is excellent. Momentum for Remo is red hot, and for Jack Bruce, it's warm. I think their popularity alone will get us a good rating for this segment. The other angles are Rogue and Valiant doing promos before their match, an angle with Brandon James, Demelza Wade, and that new stable, Big League Club, and then a pre-match angle that basically presents the Canadian title belt that we'll be fighting for in this match between Stephen Parker and Angry Gilmore. So now for the matches, I basically booked this show so that each match should be good. So I'm not sure what the top 3 are. The main event is a very important match, so I do think that it will be part of the top 3. I mean, just popularity and in-ring skills alone, I see this going well. Scythe, decent worker. His psychology is a bit lacking. Consistency isn't great, and neither is his stamina. So he's kind of the weak link of these 3 guys, especially when it's not a 1v1 match where someone can kind of carry him. At least that's my opinion. Adam Smasher, he's quite good. Now his psychology is on par with Scythe, but his consistency is really good. And again, this was a one-on-one match with Rocky Golden. I might be thinking something different, especially because his stamina is alright-ish. Rocky Golden, total all-star, everything you like to see, high psychology, good consistency, and decent-ish stamina. So actually these guys, for the most part, they're similar in stamina, and 15 minutes might be pushing it. I don't have a slow build added on here, but I am just keeping it a regular match. And that's because of the issue with consistency for both Scythe and Adam Smasher lacking a bit of psychology there. And that's okay. These are still solid workers, and I think they can get through a 15 minute, 17 minutes total time match, no problem. Rocky Golden and Adam Smasher have already had a match together, and that did a really good number. Then we have Jack Bruce and Remo, who are just both super popular and pretty good in-ring workers. I mean, they are some of the top workers in the SWF right now as I'm running it, so I do think they're gonna have almost definitely one of the top 3 matches. So just looking at the combat skills, the psychology numbers, even on the high side, I'm not super confident. And then stamina-wise, for them to be in a match that's an all-out match, I don't know. Consistency isn't great. So really what I'm struggling with is where Jack Bruce has better psychology, he doesn't have the same consistency as Remo. Neither one of them do both well. And then in terms of stamina, they're about on par, but I don't think I should book a long match. And, you know, maybe it seems a little bit boring, but regular is probably the best match aim here. All right, let's book it. Oh no, Jack Bruce is unhappy, but he looked like he was gonna complain and then had a change of heart with Remo cracking his knuckles and glaring. Like, this is always like the actual verbiage in this note, but to me it's like, yeah, these guys know that, you know, Jack Bruce is a legend, a living legend for sure, but Remo is a legend in his own right. So for Jack Bruce to make a stink about losing to Remo would be a bitch move. So let's continue. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to shake out ratings wise with everything else, but a couple of things to note. Now, I do have Des Davids and Hollywood Brett Starr set to steal the show. All right, so hopefully this is a good matchup. I am actually wondering, do I want to use Wild Brawl or steal the show? And I think just because the consistency is so good for these guys, I think I will go with steal the show. And if the crowd heat is hot enough, which it should be at this point in the show, they'll go through with that match aim and hopefully it does a good number. My worst match of the night is going to be between Stephen Parker and Angry Gilmore. Assuming that we have a hot crowd going into this match, we're going to make the match aim technical masterclass. Stephen Parker is going to win because of outside interference. There's also going to be some distractions by Kristen Pierce. I'm going to have slow build in here, and I do have a creative finish in here that is a near certainty. Hopefully that will help the rating, and the psychology between these two is high enough where they should be able to call it in the ring. That might be a disaster because they have poor in-ring chemistry, but hey, it's a risk I'm gonna be willing to take because I'm not expecting a lot from this match anyway. We're gonna end the tournament, we're gonna crown a champion, and that will be that, you know? I know they have poor chemistry and I screwed up when I planned my actual like tournament brackets, but that it is what it is. One thing in the booking analysis, Dominic D'Souza, he's not happy, I guess, with losing. I tried a few combinations where Dominic D'Souza doesn't take the fall, somebody from Fame and Money takes the fall. I think his issue basically boils down to this. When you look at perception of my roster, everybody who's involved in this match, Dominic D'Souza, Mainstream Hernandez, Triscardi, Huntington, even their opponent Joey Morgan, they're all well known, but Deaver Arnold is just only recognizable at this point. So I think he doesn't want to lose to a team that has a recognizable guy on it. And Dominic D'Souza has the driven attribute, so he wants the best career possible, and you know, he doesn't want to lose to a guy that he thinks is lower than him on the card. But I don't care. You're gonna do the job tonight. All right, no reason to delay. Let's start the show and get into our pre-show matches. All right, so first up we have Chill and Charger Siaki. They did not have a good match, but I just wanted to get Chill a win. He's actually going to basically take the place of Angry Gilmore in my plans going forward with the Canadian title, mostly because I know Gilmore and Parker really aren't going to be able to work well together. So let's go ahead and check out the next segment. All right, this pre-show match was a little bit better. Makutsi, Lenny Brown, they both did decently. Again, just wanted to get them a little bit of work and push Lenny a little bit. Next up, we have John Greed and Kip Keenan, and they had a pretty good match. I'm impressed with that, and that's good. Now, I did book for John Greed to win. I want to build his momentum a little bit, and Kip Keenan has decent momentum at the moment, and I want to suck some of that from him, give it to John Greed. I do plan on maybe doing something with John Greed and Scythe, but I do want to be utilizing John Greed a little bit more for his mic and charisma skills. Hellion matched up with an RIPW worker, and the idea was to have him win a squash match, but he was off his game. Next, we have a pretty good tag match, and I wanted to give Hawaiian Crush a win here, so I brought in a tag team that is currently together in RIPW, and Stuntman was off his game, but he benefited from having a hot new move, so I like that, especially with me wanting to add some of these guys onto the SWF roster in the near future. So let's go ahead and hit next segment. And of our pre-show matches, this is essentially the main event, and they did good with a 72. We had Bear Bukowski and Primus Allen. No special in-ring chemistry, but they did well. All right, so let's go back to the booking screen quickly. We're about to start our show with our opening match for the World Tag Team titles. Now, I'm hoping this match does well, and no matter what they do, unless it's a bomb of a match, but I don't see that happening, the crowd heat should only get to a hot level. We always start at simmering, the next level is hot, so let's see what happens and if we get a good rating out of this match. All right, a 79. This is a pretty good match, and we got everything that we expected out of it, it seems. We got the show off to a strong start with a good rating, good wrestling. We also gained heat on the story here. This is a pretty good rating. It's close to 80, but I do want to have an ongoing rivalry with these two teams for a little bit, and you don't want to fly too close to the sun too quickly, right? Like if these guys got an 85, it might be really tough. You can get penalized if your match ratings are too low, especially when the workers have faced each other often, I think within a 3-month period, but we did good, and we can see here with the crowd heat, we're hot and rising. Now this is like a subcategory where my interpretation is this match got them to a very hot level, but depending on what the next segment does, it can level off to hot or it can jump to very hot easily. So this is good. This is exactly what you want to start the show at. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next segment, which I believe is a angle. Okay, that is a surprisingly good start to our angle ratings. A 72 is not bad at all, and this angle was just meant to build up and establish this match for the Canadian title. And, we did lose heat on the storyline, but that's okay. More importantly, we see the crowd heat. It leveled off at hot, and a hot crowd is the perfect crowd for a technical masterclass match aim. So that's what we're going to do with this match. Let's check it out. Okay, a 63, and I will be honest, I am very happy with that. I know they have bad in-ring chemistry, but I do feel like we got the most out of these workers. Now, they had 53s for their in-ring performance rating. The creative finish here probably did a lot of work in making sure that this was a success. But what I set up here in this match, knowing that these guys didn't have good chemistry, was to make sure that we had a hot crowd for this match. I used Technical Masterclass because both of these workers have decent technical skill, and they also have pretty good in-ring psychology. With the Technical Masterclass, you need to have at least 15 minutes of match time, so that's what I put in here. And with having 15 minutes or more, adding the slow build is usually a good way to boost the rating. And on top of that, I did have the match be called in the ring. Because of that good psychology, especially for Angry Gilmore, I thought that if we were going to get a bonus from that, this would be the type of match to at least attempt it, right? Almost like you can't lose. I'm expecting a bad rating anyway. I'm going to look at the dirt sheet here for maybe some bonus. Yeah, so we can see the bonuses in the dirt sheet here. The storyline was pretty high heat. I mean, this lost the heat for the storyline, but I'm actually okay with that because the storyline will continue and we'll build it back up, I think. But having the hot crowd was a bonus for this type of match, and we did have a successful creative finish. So it really was just the worker chemistry. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so now we still have a hot crowd, and let's just check what the match is coming up. Mikey Lau and Randy Unleashed. This is a long one. I think these guys have had decent matches so far. Yeah, their last match was a 77, so I'm hoping that they get better than that, but let's see how it goes. All right, a 72. That's not really what I was hoping for, and we did jump 2 levels in crowd heat. We went from hot to white hot. A match is coming up after this, so that's cool. I like that the penalties are always have the crowd at white hot to maybe boost a match that I thought wouldn't be so great, but I don't know if that's going to be appropriate. But yeah, I'm a total sicko, so I'm just going to look at Brandon James. He does not have the skills for any type of special match aim, so I really don't think it's worth doing. Brandon James is the centerpiece of this match, and he just doesn't have great skills, and his stamina is frankly so yeah, when in doubt, just leave your match aim regular. There's a lot of doubt here, so that's what I'm gonna do. We're at a white hot crowd. I don't think we're going to lose our crowd heat below very hot. So let's just hope the white hot crowd boosts the match rating and we get a pretty decent showing out of these guys. Whoa, okay. There's a lot going on in this match. First, good rating. This is a pretty good number for what I was expecting to happen. A couple of weird things going on here. Sammy Smoke and Demelza Wade are an awkward pairing, and that has to do with Wade being Smoke's manager. I think I'm going to keep him in the stable. I don't know that he's actually going to wrestle a whole lot. He's kind of the comic relief in this stable, so I'm not too worried about that. Now, I got Brandon James and Chrissy Angel are on different sides of the face-heel divide. Yeah, I know I have Brandon James as a face, Chrissy Angel has a heel. All right, I must have been drunk when I booked this because I had Brandon James get distracted by Chrissy Angel. So maybe that's what that penalty is for. I don't think that I got this in previous segments I had them booked in since James turned face. That also hasn't been a match, so I don't know. But the penalty couldn't be all that much because if you look at the in-ring rating, Brandon James was second best and 63 is pretty good. It's right around where I would expect him to be for most matches. I'm pretty happy with this. And let's just move on to the angle that continues this story. And it was a 66, not great. Sammy Smoke did a good job. of improvising his interactions with the crowd. I like to see that, and this is a reason to keep him around. I mean, if he's not going to wrestle much, he doesn't need to have Demelza Wade as his manager. I can also have one of the guys ringside with him if I want him to have someone to be paired with. I'm going to return to the booking screen just to get my head around the rest of the show. All right, so we did leave that last segment with a very hot crowd, and that makes it appropriate for a steal the show type of match here. I think these guys can steal the show. Maybe, you know, we get a really good rating here. It's worth the gamble, I think. Not as good as I hoped it might be, but decent. And this is the second best match of the night so far. I think we had a 79 and now a 78. We did gain heat on our storyline that featured Leon the Chameleon and Gary the Entertainer and Justin Sensitive. So that's good. That was part of the idea of this booking, was to kind of boost that particular story while I advanced this one, which is going to continue past this show. We are still at a very hot crowd, and I do expect that to continue throughout the rest of the show. So let's just move on and see what the next match brings us. All right, so this is the 3-team tag team match, and it's a surprisingly good rating with a 78. I'm pretty happy about that. The performances were all decent. Of course, Deaver Arnold had the worst one, but we advanced the storyline. Great chemistry with Joey Morgan and Deaver Arnold. That's why I have them teaming together. And it says the commentary lifted the match, which means the match wasn't really very good because the commentary was better than the match. But we still had a good rating, and I'm pretty happy with this. We're going to keep the storyline going, and I think I am going to have a big push for this team of the partners. But that really depends on if they can maintain their ratings and the momentum as I continue booking them together as a team. One thing I'm reminded of when I look at the notes that I put in was I did put this to be an open match. And because Deaver Arnold does not have great in-ring skills, and especially because he was going to basically win, I made sure to add that open match note in order to make it look like he has done better than he actually would look. So I think that helped with this rating in this particular case. I think the next segment is one of the angles, so let's check that out and see if we can get our angle rating boosted. All right, this promo wasn't great, and my angle ratings are not doing very well, so I'm a little nervous about that. I don't know if the dirt sheet has anything. The penalties here are because of Joanne Rodriguez, and then I did put Hannah with sex appeal as her role, which I wasn't seeing her as having the primary role here, but maybe she's just too distracting and it took away from the segments. Still, we have a very hot crowd, so that should help the match in the next segment. We just got to go and see how it works out. And the match was good. At least it was an 80. Best match of the night so far. I'm hoping we have better going forward, but yeah, I really can't complain about what we have going on here. We did have a solid match. The commentary lifted the match, which means it probably could have been better, but yeah, we had a 15-minute slow build match, and yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty standard rating for these two workers, so there's really nothing else that we could have done for this particular match, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with this. All right, this is the first of those video packages, and not a good rating, and it seems the segment wasn't long enough to get a better rating. Hopefully, the next couple matches are just so good that it propels our ratings into a decent level. That's what I'm hoping now. Okay, here we go. We got an 87. We had the storyline gain heat. That's fine. This is a storyline that's actually going to end in the next segment, but the creative finish was a success, so that's great. We had a really good rating. That's only going to help Remo going forward. Hopefully that helps Jack Bruce want to re-sign with us. That's a pending thing as well. I am very satisfied with this. There's really nothing else for me to do in the show except to see how they all turn out. So we're just going to move on to the next segment that is a live in-ring angle. So hopefully that's better than the last one. And it's not, it's still a 75. But yeah, we ended the storyline between these two, and yeah, that's cool. The popularity did not boost the rating here. It's a short angle, that's why. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. We don't have any long angles in this show, so I guess that's going to be the thing that brings this rating down, I think. Let's go ahead and move on. We just got to see what the next angle brings us. And more of the same with the short video package angles, a 74 this time. So I was right about Jack Bruce and Remo getting a higher rating than this video segment, but it's just too short to really have delivered. We'll see how it all shakes out in the end, but we have one more match to go, and that's the end of the show. So let's go ahead and check it out and see where we land on this last match of the night, the main event. Okay, so we got an 83. Not as good as the last match, but good. I think we're looking at, for the match rating, somewhere in the low 80s. For the angle rating, somewhere in the mid 70s. So I'm hoping in the end we land in the low 80s for the entire show. So let's just see here. There was a lack of selling, and none of these guys can really sell, so that hurt things. Smasher was off his game, and that's unfortunate. Rocky Golden was great. It was a good match. So we did a good job with this show. There is one more segment. I added a post-show segment because we're in Jack Bruce's hometown, and really just to give him and Rocky Golden, the biggest stars who are in the entire company, an opportunity to get some crowd work after a big show, partially role play, partially experimenting on trying to move the needle with popularity. So we'll finish up the show with this last segment and just see how it goes. And yeah, I should have done this during the show, an 85. That's pretty much where I expected that one to land. A good 6-minute angle that saw Rocky Golden and Jack Bruce cut promos. And I mean, again, this was just crowd work. The crowd is still buzzing. That's cool. It's time to finish the show and see how things shook out. Okay, we got an 82, and I'm happy with that. I mean, it is as good as I expected to do once I saw where my angle ratings were. And, you know, this is a decent rating. Right now, I really just want to get to huge. Really, that means focusing on getting popularity in Canada. I definitely got a rating that was big enough in order to boost my popularity there. Hopefully we see that shake out when we look at the popularity in each region. But this also maintains my popularity in all US regions. So yeah, I think we did good. Let's go ahead and finish the show. There's a lot to do because it's an event. We got to address the locker room. Okay, I made some decisions on my addressing the locker room post-show, and one thing I'll explain is that the amount of people you can praise at these events depends on the size of your company, and also it can take several speeches in order for it to even have an effect. I don't want to waste any of these slots and not praise someone. So for Jack Bruce, I'm pointing him out as a good example because I know he has a morale issue, and I also want him to re-sign for a new contract. For Joey Morgan, I am going to compliment him on a good performance because he had a good performance, and I want to, again, fix a morale issue that I know I have with him, especially if he's going to be going forward and getting a push with his new tag team. Dominic D'Souza was not happy about the results of the match that I booked for him, so I'm going to point him out as a good example, and hopefully that makes him feel better. And then for Chrissy Angel, she just re-signed, and I'm going to tell her that she's awesome. I feel like with her attributes, can't think of the specific ones, but it seems like the attributes that she has that might help give her a boost as well and keep her from having bad morale for whatever reason. So I'm going to go ahead and make this speech. Jack Bruce was pleased, Morgan seemed pleased, D'Souza seemed pleased, and Chrissy Angel was pleased. So there you go. All right, financial report. With the show costs, it's hard to do one-to-one with our TV shows, but you know, we did hire the venue at $80,000, and that's what it cost. You know, you have the other costs in there as well, but overall, we did make money. That's good. Some significant profit here, and that does include the ticket sales and the pay-per-view revenue, and post-show finances. We're just making money, so that's good. This is what I really want to see, is the popularity recap, and we've only grown little bits in both Canada and Mexico. I think for my next cycle into the next event, I'm actually going to run all my TV shows in Canada and hopefully boost the ratings. So I do need to plan for some good TV coming up. Media Scrum. Gotta love these. Let's just go right into it. Love doing that. All right, so you seem to be having great success in the US market. All your competitors are playing catch up. You must be delighted? And I think the most neutral thing here is to say we're just getting started. And I like that one because it's also honestly how I feel. I think that we're improving in terms of the ratings that I'm seeing after the shows. And I think the plans going forward are only going to make the product better. So yeah, why not answer with confidence? All right, so next question. Will you be making an effort to keep Jack Bruce on the roster? His deal is coming towards its final month. And, you know, I do want to stroke Jack Bruce's ego. So I think I'm going to use this top answer here. We'll do everything we can to keep him. And it would be an enormous blow for SWF to lose him. So yeah, absolutely, that's the answer. All right, Stephen Parker won the SWF Canadian Gold title at tonight's show. Should we expect him to have a long reign? All right, good question. And I don't want to overcommit, but I do want to make sure that it's not an insulting answer to Stephen Parker, but I do think I'm going to say he deserves the opportunity to get a run as champion. I hope that's not an insulting answer. He's a good worker. He actually saved me in a show where I needed him to work 2 matches, and he's done a pretty good job in everything that I've put him in. So there's no reason not to have him hold the belt for a little while at least. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the title long term, but if he can boost his popularity, that might be a bigger push in the future. But yeah, let's just see how he does with it. All right, this is the tough question. What are your thoughts on one of your rivals, Brent Hill, the head booker of TCW? I mean, I know with TCW and USPW, we are at war with them. So do I take the high road or do I not? Like I could say, I don't know him, I don't pay attention. That might be the most neutral response. Great booker, terrible person. I think I'm much better. That's just dishonest, honestly, just in terms of the ratings, especially because they provide the ratings here where they don't for other questions. I think like this is an absolute insult if I say something like that. If I say I'm heavily influenced by him, I'm kind of bending over and taking it. So I'm going to go with he's great and TCW are lucky to have him. High road answer that's rather neutral. Oh boy. I mean, personally, I can't stand him. You know, honestly, like I'm sure he's a good person. I don't think of much of the way he runs. I mean, he's running it just fine. He's basically just blasting it on his streaming service, right? That's the lore there, is he owns a streaming service and he bought the USPW for that purpose, you know, to have as a big show. So listen, we're kind of doing the opposite. We had a wrestling company and now we're starting our own streaming platform, right? So look, I'm going to stay super neutral and say I don't know him, so I can't comment. Okay, question about off night for High Flying Hawaiian. I honestly didn't catch that. He had a pre-show match. Wasn't an important match. I don't think he's unreliable. I mean, I do need to find something for him to do, and it's kind of part of why I want to have the Shooting Star division get started again. But I think I'm going to fully back him and snap at this reporter and say, look, everyone has a night off. Chill. Give him a break. And that's it. Media scrum complete. Post show is complete. That was Awesome Impact. I think that will do it for another long episode of Booking SWF. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll know when the next episode is released and every time it's on.